guys, welcome to this week's episode of the Soft series. This is episode 3. If you missed the first 2, you can check them out below or up in the cards. Basically, I've been going through my favorite things, and this week we are doing podcasts. I'm a little excited about this, so we'll see how long I ramble. Let's go. Okay, so the first one we're going to talk about goes right in hand with the next one. That's the Rise podcast and the Rise Together podcast. These were both initiated by the one and only Rachel Hollis. I'm a oldie but goldie convert of hers, so if you've been around for very long or if you follow me on Instagram, then you know that I'm obsessed. But I'm going to stick to the podcast today. The business podcast she's had for years and years. It was called Deus back in the day, so you can check that out if you swipe back to her old content. But it's been doing really well the last year, especially with all of the new stuff that she's been putting out. And so this business podcast is business, but it's almost business with a every girl twist. Like, to me, I'm not currently running a business, but I find the content to be hugely helpful. She recently did a finance episode with a guest speaker whose name I have forgotten, but I wrote it down. It's David Bach. I hope I'm saying that right. It's episode 98. That one's one of the ones I would recommend. It was amazing. Regardless of where you are finance-wise or what you're putting your finances toward, it was an amazing episode. I love her interviews. She's funny, and it seems like the interviewees really get plugged in and just share all the things. So I think that it's a great option regardless of where you are, whether you're running a business or not. It's definitely something to check out. The second podcast, Rise Together, is one that she does with her husband Dave. This one is newer. It's been a year, maybe a little less, that they've been doing this podcast, and I find it to be really light while also not being afraid to go anywhere that you need to go in a marriage podcast. So they talk about all of the things, and they're both very candid. It's a lot of fun. You can tell that their relationship includes lots of laughter. It's really enjoyable, but it also has a lot of challenging stuff. There are some great episodes that I think you would love. There is episode 13 and 15 are two of the ones that I think are one of the best. But I find that it's good to have something that you can, someone who's a little farther ahead than you are in relationships, talk about relationships and give you just some food for thought so that you can continue to rock your life. Number 3 is probably my favorite. I'm a little biased. This is a local podcast that a woman started here in Northwest Arkansas. Her name is Alex, and it is the Adoptive Mom podcast. It's been around for several seasons now. I don't remember which season we're on, but I've been listening to it since the beginning. She is a fellow Calm mom. I'll leave that link below. Anytime I talk about it, I always leave it below. It's a specific organization that helps foster and adoptive families in this community. They're available all over the place. I know there are several of them in Arkansas, but here in Northwest Arkansas, we have one, and she's a fellow adoptive mom. She started the podcast a couple of years ago just to bring some light to these conversations that adoptive moms have, whether it's international, domestic, embryo. She's actually interviewed several people, so she covers a lot of bases. We also, there's several where she'll talk to birth moms or to other people who can talk from the perspective of being on the birth family side of things, which was huge for me. So I think you should check it out. I'll leave some below. My favorites are season 3, episode 5 with Christine Bauer. I don't know if I'm saying your name right, but that one was very enlightening for me. And then if you go all the way back to season 1, episode 12, there's Rebecca Price. She is a therapist, and that one had some huge things for us just on what we're personally dealing with. I love how she manages in these interviews to get life advice and adoptive advice out of people regardless of where they stand in line. Not every single person she interviews is an adoptive parent. Sometimes they just work or volunteer or are relevant to the space or have family who have adopted. And so it's got good stuff whether you are or want to be, or if you're a family of an adoptive family. That's my TARDIS text message noise coming in. I need to cut that out probably, but it's such a cute noise I might not. This is why you can tell that I'm not professional yet. I forgot to silence my phone. But you should check that podcast out. It's one of the best. The next one's on a totally different playing field. It's the Smart Passive Income podcast. This one's run by Pat Flynn. It's an oldie but a goldie. I think it's amazing. I find that as I try to do YouTube or Instagram or whatever I'm doing, there's something for everybody in the way that he talks about email, blogging, YouTube, business, strategies, anything communication wise, especially when it comes to how you can do income that may not be your first income, but it may become your first income. He's got all kinds of content all over the place. You can check out his website, which I will leave below. They've got a couple of different categories and lists that give some of their best options as far as which episodes to check out. I love 97% of them. There's a couple of them that, you know, weren't specifically for what I'm aiming for, but I think you can find something for anyone. If you're in this space and doing something on the interwebs, then you should check him out. This next one was referred to me by a friend, and then Derek started listening and we're both obsessed with it. It's called the Bible Binge. It's hosted by the same two people who do the podcast. Basically, I love the tagline. If you listen to any of the episodes, they'll say the same thing at the beginning of every one of them. It's not meant to be evangelical or adversarial. It's just the Bible has some cool stories and they want to share them. And so they talk about it through a pop culture lens. They'll each character that they talk about on each story of any story of the Bible, they're going to connect it to an actor or a character in a book or a movie so that you can get kind of a visual. And I think regardless of your stance, it's something that's funny and enjoyable, and it definitely brings to light some of the harsh things that happen to characters in the Bible. Okay, before we get to the last podcast, I'm going to talk about 4 honorable mentions. These are ones that I love, but I don't feel like I can speak to quite yet because I haven't listened to a ton of their episodes, but they're definitely ones you should check out. First one is Trailer Cast. This one is done by a therapist. It's got a whole bunch of therapy related content. Number 2 is The Place We Find Ourselves. This is another therapy one that's a little more deep calm in tone, so it's a totally different kind of thing than the first one, but another one I would check out. The third one is totally guilty pleasure. It's called The Sister Show. It's 2 women who both have channels on YouTube. I'll leave them below. I love them. They're doing their own podcast. They just started. It's several episodes in, but they're really funny and they talk about all things mom, all things women, and it's a great show. The last one is Made for This. This is the Jenny Allen podcast, which just started. As of recording this, there's not an actual episode up yet, just a trailer. But if you do anything in the Jenny Allen space, if you know who she is, then you should get on that right now because you're going to be at the top of all the stuff she's going to get into, and I'm sure it's going to be amazing. The last podcast that I'm going to mention is called The Bright Side. This is a fiction podcast that goes along with a therapist who is working with several different clients. These clients happen to have extra abilities, which she specializes in helping people walk through and manage and handle different abilities that they have. You've got a wide range of characters and abilities, and it gets pretty intense. So there will be a few of them that will have a little bit of a trigger warning because they do deal with some deep issues. But most of it is funny. It's definitely engaging. I just listened to them all in one go, basically. They were a whole season in, I think, when I found them, and I listened to the whole season pretty quickly. It's wrapped, but you can go back and listen to them all again. I totally think they're worth it. You should check that one out if you need something interesting and a little intense, to have something fiction to add to your list. Okay guys, that's it from me today. I don't know what I'm going to be doing next. This is actually the last one that I have planned for Soft Series, so we'll be surprised together what's coming up next. I'm not really sure. I have things that I want to dive into. I've just got to get my sea legs, which I feel a little bit better now, so we may just jump right in. You might see another soft video. I'm not sure yet, so we'll just see what happens next week. Bye guys.